Coach, we'd like to transition now into a game that we play here. It's a lot of fun, called Start, Sub, or Sit. And what we'll do is we'll give you 3 different basketball topics, ask you to start one, sub one, sit one. If you feel like you need to change that around a little bit, you can, but we'll have a fun little conversation around it. So the first question has to do with, you took over as a head coach of USC not too long ago, and there's all sorts of coaches that are taking over new programs for the first time this fall. And the importance of the first 30 to 60 days of, meeting with people and building the culture of your program. And so these are 3 different groups of people that you feel, are important to meet with and get.
Why do I see where this is going? And I've already seen that there's going to be some impossible calls in here, but okay. We'll give it a try.
So start, sub, or sit meeting. So with your staff, with your coaching staff, with your players, or with important outsiders, the media, sponsors, people that are alumni or whatnot outside your program, but are also important in and around your program. So start, subset those 3 groups of people in your first 30 to 60 days.
Yeah. So like in this question, you're trying to get me fired I'm not even 3 months into the job, because you absolutely have to say the players first, right? Like the players have to start. There is no me, us, this is a player-centered program. That's why I do this, right? The ability to impact a group of young women in every possible way, on the court, off the court. So players are definitely going to be there. I've got incredible staff sitting right here, right outside this office. And if I don't say them, that would be problematic. But of course, like all the stakeholders that make USC what it is, that's really tough. So this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to twist your little game on you for a second here. And I'm going to say that my staff is already so bought into the culture and what we're doing, they're going to let me sit them so that I can put the other stakeholders as a sub. They would tell me, no, you got to say, the donors, the media, the recruits, the everything, right? Of course, they're so selfless. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put them next, but they know as a staff, like in all seriousness, right? Like I don't do this alone. There's a group of us that are kind of like together, united. I have an amazing staff, but to really understand college athletics, like, that what you do for the team as this unit every single day is the most important thing. But you simultaneously have to be thinking about, hey, this really matters to alums. And, the recruits are the lifeblood coming up next. And, telling that story to the media is important too. So it's really hard.
No, and we, all 3 of those are obviously very important. And
yes.
You're not the first person to twist the game. And, people have sat all 3, started all 3. So, but I'd like to go to one in particular that I know is really important. I know that the players and the staff are obviously the lifeblood, but the importance of when you first take over a new job, of meeting with, people within the community, how important that is to get them on the same page as your program.
For sure. And I have the great privilege and honor, to be honest, of taking over a program with not just a great history, but like a monumental history. I mean, we're talking about it's really mind-boggling. If you haven't watched the documentary Women of Troy, you really should. I mean, it's a story of, gosh, it's now almost 40 years ago, right? The 19, 80s championship teams, right? Like there should be a 30 for 30. Like those teams were historic and did change the game for women's basketball, right? So that's in the history of this program. So me understanding that, connecting, with those women and all the women that came after them, I think it's incredibly important. In general, the Trojan network, people say it, I'd heard it before, but I didn't really get it until you feel it. And so I definitely believe that, I just represent the USC letters and the brand and the women's basketball program. But to me, one of the greatest things I can do is connect and really make it sort of our program be for the entire community here in Southern California and the network around the world.
Coach, my follow-up is in regards to your staff. And now you're fortunate enough that you coach at an extremely high level, a competitive level, and there's going to be stress associated with that and pressure. And so how important is you when putting together a staff of people that you basically trust, rather than maybe they're a great mind, but you don't really know them, but you want to bring in someone that you trust, that's going to have your back when you're coming into a new club or a new college?
Yeah. I think both are really important, right? Like, you can't just hire your friends, right? Like that. I think that's really important. You can't just surround yourself with people that, make you comfortable, or you want to hang out with. You need to find high level people that serve roles and a purpose and add and are elite, that are different than what I do. Right. And I think that's where you get a really good synergy. Right. But there's no question that people who are philosophically aligned, and their character of, this is about the team, this is about the university, this is about the young women that we coach. And my belief, and part of the reason that I came back into college and to do this, is to really elevate other people, not just our players, but the staff I work for. So, I have, for example, I'll tell you about Courtney Jaco. She's our director of player development. So she's a really good example of, I've known her for a long time. I recruited her out of high school. She came to SC, but we kind of remained just in good touch, because I don't dislike someone if they went to a different school. And I think she didn't dislike me because I wasn't her coach. Like, we just I respected the way that she played and how she went about stuff. Then she went on to be an intern at Stanford, and, we connected at that level. Hey, how can I help you get in the profession? Then she reached out to me when I was with the Cavs, asking about the NBA and some kind of job paths there. And I had no idea I was going to end up at USC, like none. Right. And so then when I got the job, she was one of the first people I thought of because of her connection to USC, because I respected the work that she was doing. And I believed that this could be a spot where I could kind of help her wherever her future is going to go. So she's our director of player development. And so she's kind of in charge of being the liaison to our players and everything that sort of touches them that's related to their experience here, but not necessarily only on the court, right? Yeah. Connect them with our nutritionist, mental health, career services. Then on the court, player development, I've modeled her a lot, like how we use in the NBA, where she's finding clips for people of WNBA players, NBA players, whoever. All of this to say, did I know her and have a comfort zone with her? Yes. But I was drawn to the fact that she cares about USC and cares about what we're trying to do here. So then I know she will have my back and sort of help move forward our vision. And at the same time, if I can help her be part of this and then become whatever she wants to be next, like that's how it works. Similarly, my assistants, who have been doing this for a while, I rely on them to give me their experiences, to give me their thoughts, to tell me when, if they have an idea that's different than mine or a different perspective. Like, that's high level people, but you absolutely have to start from a place of, they're high character people that you want to go into this really intense experience with.
My start sub sit is we're going to place you, it's a late game isolation from the top of the key. So start sub sit. Do you want to just go 1-4 flat and let the player play? Send a ghost screen, send some confusion at the ball, or random screens by the other 4 players as the one isolation begins?
So I'm definitely starting, like right now, this iteration of myself, my career right now, based on like where my mind is, definitely starting the go screen. I think I'm not afraid to put the ball in the best player's hands or the best scorer's hands or whatever, and let them make a decision and make a play. But I feel like the 1-4 flat right now might make it harder on them because it just feels a little stagnant. The go screen is really interesting because you can pick on a weaker defender, right? And if you feel like you have a weaker defender, you can actually set the screen, right? You get the switch and now you're, all the way down. If you have a threat from the other spot too, they have to be very concerned about that person and not necessarily leave. But essentially, if you just cause a coverage, right? If you cause the person on the ball to switch their feet because they think they're going to have help, the screen's coming. Now you help your player get downhill. And if they actually do go into a coverage, maybe you hit your teammate. And I think just the trust in that best player to make the best play most of the time it's going to be a bucket, and the ghost screen, you help them, with that. But if they have the ability then to kind of navigate that confusion and potentially pass it as well, that's when you set them up to succeed. So I would say probably ghost screen first. Second, I would go straight 1-4 flat. And then I would say at the moment, like right now, I would say just random screens probably would be my last choice, just because I would go straight 1-4 flat, allowing the ball handler to read the help, right? If someone helps, they just know where they're throwing it.
Yeah.
I will say one of my just kind of indelible moments, we were in an Elite Eight game against Georgia. And let me tell you, there is no pressure like an Elite Eight game. Like that is just, I remember like just wanting so badly those players to experience going to the Final Four. Like there doesn't get more pressure than that. So we're in a really tight game with Georgia. Andy Landers was the coach. He was a straight man coach his whole career. They played us zone, partly because I think we were 31-3 at the time, and we had lost in the Pac-12 tournament, and the opponent had played straight zone. So I think he's kind of like, well, they didn't handle that very well. Like, let's play zone. Anyway, so they're in zone. It's an overtime game. Game is tied, and he goes man, right? He hardly played man the whole game. So at the time we called it our 1-4 flat was called butter zero. Cause like our butter, like last second, and just zero was everyone's in 1-4 flat. And I put the ball in the hands of Leisure Clarendon, who is, in the WNBA now, and they're just incredible leader. And, what Leisure was our leader at the time, we just put the ball in her hands and didn't send any screen. She ISO'd, got to her pull up, which was essentially unguardable, and scored it. So to me, when you have that type of player, you have that trust in, you can go 1-4 flat for sure.
Coach, with the ghost screen, and you touched on a little bit and you said it, how are you teaching the ball handler to navigate that confusion and kind of make the proper read?
I think it depends on if you know if you know it's a ghost screen and that's going to kind of happen, essentially you just, all these offensive players need is like a hair of an advantage, a millisecond, right? So in that sense, like if you know you're ghosting it, like it's just like, get the defender to maybe call some type of coverage or whatever, but really you're just getting your defender, you're on their heels for a second and you're going straight downhill. Like really that's what you're thinking. Maybe control the timing, like let your teammate come up and then control, versus hey, am I setting it? Am I slipping out? But if you have really good timing, it's almost like this in sync type of thing where, the screener's coming and ghosting out, and at the same time, it just gets you that downhill leverage a little bit.
Okay. And are you leaving that up to the decision of the ghost screener, whether he sets it or whether he or she sets it or ghosts, or are you telling every time, let's just ghost and get out?
I think it depends, right? Like I think you definitely have an action where it's like a straight up ghost, and other times like, we might say something like, hey, let's see if we get the switch here, right? You see a lot of times where they actually set it. Now, this really happens in the NBA because it's all about matchups. Like you'll see the offensive person looking around, right? Who do I want to pick on? Like your Chris Pauls of the world and stuff will do this, whoever, like just who can really manage a game and look at, okay, calling up this person, and they either you're going to switch and I'm going to get someone who can't guard me and I'm going to go by, or you're not going to switch and then I have a screen and I'm going to beat you off the screen. So it puts you in a situation, Bradley Beal will do that. So that's kind of one way. And then there's the unknowing, right, of whether or not they're going to, like, then when you have like a shooting four, it's really tough, because if they ghost it and the player's caught in coverage kind of staring at the ball, then it's just, again, we would do that with, Kevin Love and Colin, because if you can't leave Kevin in that situation, right, because he's going to make a three and Colin knows. And if you don't leave Kevin, then Colin with downhill speed can't be guarded really by himself either. That's where it can be super effective if he was shooting four in a downhill guard.
This last start sub sit, this has to do with a player, one of your better players, getting their second foul in the first half. Okay.
Yep.
So, and we're going to put this caveat that this is like a must-win game, an NCAA tournament game.
Yep.
It's that Elite Eight game.
It's that Elite Eight game. Exactly. You got to win it.
My blood pressure just rose, and this is a fictional scenario.
So, and we'll say it's somewhere like say, early second quarter or midway through the first half. So start, sub, sit, pull them out and have them sit till the beginning of the next half. Pull them out, but then put them back in maybe on an offensive possession sometime at the end of the first half, or just let them play. So start, sub, sit, those three scenarios.
Yep. So I will say that maybe like very early in my head coaching career, like the first couple of years, like, you're a little more just kind of like, I have to have my rules or like be a little bit, and I used to take them out. And I completely evolved from that. So that would be the automatically sit them for the rest of the half is now my sit.
Okay.
In terms of the other two, like I think my start is going to be let them play it out, but with a little bit of a caveat. I will say it depends on who it is. Okay, so the one that I sat, if there's a player that just has a really, really hard time not fouling. And I'm talking to you, Rashonda Gray, if you're watching this, who was a player of ours at Cal, who's now at the Liberty, amazing, player. But, she could, so physical, but just it doesn't necessarily have the ability to completely, avoid a foul. Like if it's a situation like that and you just cannot risk the person getting the third foul, that would be the one time. But for the most part, and I'm just joking with you, Rashonda, but for the most part, I kind of evolved to say, wait a second. So, if there's 8 minutes to go in the half, I'm sitting this person who's, you said an important player, a player that can impact winning. I'm sitting them on the fear that I may have to sit them later. It doesn't make sense to me, right? It doesn't make sense. I think that you're necessarily saying I'm going to lose the minutes on the chance that I might have to sit her some minutes later. And so I evolved from that. And so probably what I would do is either kind of make eye contact after the second foul and like make sure the person knows, okay, like we're not fouling anymore. Like, make sure the ref, say to the ref, she's not fouling anymore. Like we're going to, or get them out quickly for a quick breather, right? And go back in. And I would probably, judge the effectiveness. And if we're, in a rhythm, and go to about the 2 or 3 minute mark of the quarter of the half and then take her out and just feel like, again, you got to know your team, right? How influential is this person, all that kind of stuff. But my point is I don't want to go to the point of like the panicking where you bust your own rhythm, you sit someone for 8 minutes. Now you ask them to come back in the second half and, play. I think it's tough. So I just think kind of managing it in a more reasonable way where, they play without fouling. They give you another good, 3-4 minutes, and then maybe you ride it home from there. And that's less disruptive. But you got to know your team. I mean, if it's a person who's got, someone off the bench who's equally effective and, it's their time to step up, that can work too.
Okay. So gosh, a lot of great stuff to dive into there. I'm not sure exactly where to go with it, but the one thing that sticks out to me is just the emotional process of a player getting their second foul. And then when a coach always pulls them till the third quarter is sometimes like, I feel like you can lose the player mentally because they know they're going to sit for like a half hour through halftime.
It's too extreme. Like to me, it's just kind of too extreme. I don't know. I've just evolved where I'm just like, has it burned me a couple of times where the person gets their third foul? Sure. But then they got to, depending on when it happens, right. Then they got to play, starting the second half with, obviously the worst case scenario is there's 8 minutes to go in the half. You're like, I'm rolling through it. And with 7 minutes to go or 6 minutes to go, they get their third. And now you're still sitting them for an extended period of time and they have 3. Like that's obviously the worst case scenario, but you got to have that, like, you're not fouling, right? If you get a cheap, like moving screen or something, that's when it's just like, what the heck, but you hope that, they know how to avoid it and officials kind of understand as well. But like, but in general, I think if you're not as extreme and you just, let them play, keep a rhythm, maybe sub them, now you sub them with 3 or 4 minutes and you're doing fine and someone else is on a roll, great. Then you ride it through to the half, but it just doesn't make something bigger than what it is.
For sure. Coach, one quick follow-up for me here. Offensively, you just mentioned something that was interesting about, the type of player and you don't want them to get a moving screen or whatnot. If a big gets a second foul, offensively, then are you thinking maybe less on-ball screens or ghosting stuff so you don't even put them in a position to get that moving screen, or you just trust them and you play your style?
I mean, I think you run the risk there if you're like, again, if you're manipulating it too much, then are you also doing what getting them out of rhythm the way that sitting them down for 8 minutes would? I think kids just want to play. You have to have someone who understands, look, I can't put myself, what I tell players is you got to understand how not to put yourself in a position to foul, right? Like you can't, there's just ways that you're 2 steps ahead where you're not even, where you just really, and it takes an elite athlete with good body control and all that. What scares me that can be, what I might not do is if we have like an isolation play off the dribble, I might not send a big into like a high post isolation where a guard can slide over and take a charge. Because then I will say, okay, that's my fault. You send them into, I might not even run that if they get 1 quick foul, right? Because now you don't want to put them in a situation where, so you have to kind of understand circumstances, but I don't want to over micromanage so much because then you're defeating the purpose too. Like the idea is to get effective minutes out of someone who has 2 fouls. And not let it impact everything.
For sure.
Coach, on the other side of the ball, if your opponent, one of the better players of your opponent has 2 fouls, will you look to attack them, whether it's in the post, one-on-one, put them in screens and see if you can draw that third?
Yeah. I mean, maybe without getting, again, you don't want to bust your own rhythm by trying, sometimes people will try to attack a mismatch in the post too much. It doesn't work or such as, but again, one of the things from the NBA that resonates, like the tactical ability of coaches to pick on mismatches and to really manage rotations and who's facing who, that type of stuff is really nuanced. And so, yes, I might, but only within the context of like, you put that kid on an island and they can't foul, then you might get something, but you just have to know your own team and know the circumstances. But that's definitely something I might do.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, you're off the start sub sit hot seat. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for playing the game with it. You were great. So